Okay. We are live. Let me play it. Hold on. Did it play all the way through?
It played.
Okay. Well, it's not playing for me, but if it plays for you, that means everybody else is seeing it. So, anyway, okay, guys. And we're going to repurpose this, and I send it to everybody and their brother. We're here with Dr. Sarah Satterfield. And in the background, you can't see the daughter. Your daughter's checking to make sure we do everything right. She'll do a written report for tomorrow. So I'm going to go over nutrition about electrolytes, but Sarah, you're going to talk about some of the races and other things that you have on as an agenda, your agenda. So you've got the floor.
Awesome. So thank you for joining us. If you're joining us live, it's great to have you here. If you're watching us pre-recorded, feel free to hop in any Tuesday at 4. We do a broadcast. I like to call it the Dumb and Dumber Show, but take with it what you will. I wanted to talk a little bit here at the beginning about some of the races that have occurred recently and also some of the upcoming races. And then our main focus is going to be nutrition after that. So important to runners and triathletes. Any kind of athletes have to take into consideration nutrition, especially if you're going longer distances in the hot months. And Craig and I each have an interesting perspective. I'll talk a little bit more at the end about being a vegetarian. I've been a vegetarian since 1992. I wrote a research paper when I was up at Furman University on the meatpacking industry, and I quit cold turkey. Pardon the pun. After that, I have not eaten anything with a face since 1992. That does include fish and also chicken. Those creatures do have faces. So I don't consume any meat at all. And that does present an interesting set of problems that have to be addressed. Things like B12 you really have to take into consideration if you're an endurance athlete, and also a vegetarian or a vegan. And I'll explain the difference between the two. But I wanted just to mention the most recent race that I did. I had said last week that the Crystal River Series is coming up. We had the first event of that series last weekend out of Crystal River, Florida. It's always a very hot race, and I think the challenge of it this time around was the wind. The breeze felt great on the run, but as you know, when you have a wind in a water scenario, it does present a lot of chop. So it was a very difficult swim. The swim there was a 1/4 mile swim. It felt quite a bit longer than that just because of the chop. I typically breathe every 4 strokes or so. I do breathe on one side, and it felt like every time I was coming up for air, I would get walloped in the face with a wave. The big thing is just to keep going. If you're ever in conditions like that, sometimes people will flip over on their backs during the swim. I'm not a backstroke person, but you can certainly flip on your back and just kind of regain your composure and then flip over and continue. With triathlons, including this one, a lot of times your swim is almost like a rectangle. You're going to swim out, you're going to swim over, and then you're going to swim back in. So if you're having a rough time going out, I was in with some of the novices. They dropped back to my wave. And some of the novices were really struggling. And if you are new, just remember that if it's hard going out, it's going to be easier coming back in. So it does improve as you go along. I'll also mention that kayakers are just such a vital part of races like this one. You can swim from one buoy to the next. You can swim from one kayak to the next. So just set your sights on those short distances ahead. Don't think, oh, I've got to swim a quarter of a mile nonstop. Just think, I've got to swim to the next buoy. I've got to swim to the next kayak, and you'll be able to push through the swim. The bike was great. I do clip in. Most athletes will clip in, and I'm getting used to some new shoes, the clips on them, so that was a little bit of a challenge. But the wind actually was not bad on the bike. I was worried that if we went out fast, we were going to come back against the headwind, but it really wasn't that bad. I averaged a pretty high cadence and also about 16.6 miles per hour. It was a 15-mile bike. And then we finished off with the run. The breeze felt great. The only challenge with Crystal River is the road has a lot of boat traffic, and this is an issue when you're both running and also doing the bike. They do have police out there to help watch over that, but a lot of times the Crystal River races will coincide with major holidays, Memorial Day weekend, Labor Day weekend, and you have all these people that are coming in to recreationally fish and boat, and you do really have to watch the boat traffic. It's more of an issue with the bike, but it's a bit of an issue with the run as well. Another challenge with the Crystal River run is that the road is slanted just a little bit. And if you've ever run on a slanted road, it's fine to bike on one, but it does kind of get your knees after a while to run on that slant. The race director, Chris, mentioned that they were considering creating a paved trail that runs parallel to the road. And that would just be a blessing to be able to ride out, come back on that paved trail. It's not going to be a very wide trail. So what they're planning to do is have the athletes go out on the road and then come back on the trail, and the same thing with the runs. That would be a great improvement. But there were about, I would say, 120 racers there. So it was a really good, very well-run event. Coming up next weekend, we have the beginnings of the Cool Summer Morning series down in Claremont. The challenges there are the hills. If you've been to Claremont, you know that Florida is not flat once you get going on the hills. I'm going to be doing the sprint race. They also have an Olympic race, which is twice as long basically as the sprint. And they're going to encounter a lot of hills on that Olympic distance. Like this past one, we did have the aqua bike division. If you don't want to run, if you have bad knees, you can do a swim run component or swim bike component. They also have duathlon. So if you're not interested in swimming, sometimes the water is very murky. There was a lot of seaweed in Crystal River this time around. And like I said, the chop, they have the duathlon where you run, you bike, and then you run at the end. So there's always a lot of options in triathlons. Never let your inability or lack of desire to run or to swim hold you back. There are plenty of alternatives. So now I'm going to hand it over to Craig, and he'll talk a bit about nutrition, and then we'll come back to me and I'll talk about nutrition from a vegetarian's perspective.
Yeah, I take a lot of supplements because, as I stated before, I had gastric bypass, so I have a very small stomach. So my absorption rate is very limited because those who have a larger stomach, that's for digestion and so forth, and then absorption through your intestines. So I want to explain electrolytes versus, I don't have a gel pack, but I do have honey. And the difference between, let's say, sodium chloride and honey is this is an inorganic compound that has sodium chloride in it. And this here, honey or your gel pack has carbon in it. So organic compounds have carbon, and your sugars all have carbon in it. When you go into and I hope it's nothing serious, but if you're in a hospital and you need some energy, they're going to put dextrose in a bag, hang it up, and give you the dextrose for energy. If you've been out there, say you're dehydrated, they're going to give you electrolytes. Now, electrolytes, this is your body. I used to teach biology, so I do have a couple visual. The sodium, this does nothing unless it hits your body with a solution. So when the sodium goes in here, sodium chloride, it disassociates. Why does it want to do that? Because it goes across your nerve, your dendrites, and it connects where your dendrite connects to your muscle, and it controls your blood pressure. It's kind of like topping off the fluids in your car. So you need electrolytes. So just drinking Water is not always going to do it. It'll hydrate you, but you want the sodium, the potassium, and so forth in your body so you can have that electrical conduit, so to speak, because your body has electricity going through it for your heart and so forth. No electricity in the heart, you get a pacemaker, kiddo. So I hope that doesn't happen. But that's why you have that. You have electricity in your body. The more you hydrate and have electrolytes, the better off you are in terms of running. Now, as far as this one, this is for the energy. That is not electrolyte. Okay. If you think that's going to be electrolyte, you're taking it. It's not. Now, what I do is I take this one, it has both electrolytes in it and also energy. The first ingredient is dextrose, which you'll probably see in a hospital. They'll have a bag of dextrose, I don't know, 4%, 10%. It depends. And that is feeding your cells, okay? Those who are diabetic like myself, sugar has a tough time getting into the cell membrane, so you have to I take metformin. Some people have insulin. What does that do? It takes that sugar molecule and creates a channel through your cell membrane so it gets into your cell and you have energy. When I don't have any energy like that, my sugar goes into my blood, and then my blood count or my sugar count is very, very high. So you want to always have electrolytes. Now, when do you want to do this? I drink before, wait, I have my special one. I drink before I run or cycle. Why? Because you want to get it into your system, especially with a 5K. It's not a long race, so you want to make sure you have enough electrolytes. If I'm going a long distance, I want electrolytes and I want organic compound like sugar. Same thing if you're running, so you want a combination of both. But you want to ingest, swallow, whatever you want to call it, before the race. You don't want to do it. You want to kind of like prime the pump, so to speak, prime your body so you have it in there so everything is operating sufficiently versus waiting 3 miles to drink the electrolytes, that kind of thing. So I drink before I ride, a little bit of running. I don't run as much as Sarah does for reasons. I have a problem with my Achilles, so I ride a lot. And I'll drink before, so I already have that in my system. And that's what you want to do with the electrolytes and also a combination of dextrose, which is in your gel pack like goo or do you do it, Sarah, do you have it? Do you do gel packs?
I do. On the bike, I do.
Yeah. Okay. So you can do that, or this particular one, I put in my bottle, and it has both for the long haul and electrolytes. Because if you're not hydrating everything, you can get up real fast, like transitioning from one to the other, you'll get dizzy. So Sarah, we were talking about that. Maybe you could, talk about the vegan thing and also what you do so you don't have dizzy spells and so you have enough energy to do the triathlon. Go ahead.
So like Craig was mentioning, I think with a 5K, unless you really need nutrition, typically on a 5K course, you'll have water, maybe at the turnaround point, sometimes Gatorade as well. But most athletes can make a 5K with no problem, with no hydration. As I mentioned before, I am vegetarian, so I don't eat anything with animals, any animal products. I am not vegan. Vegan is when you also don't eat eggs or cheese or dairy. I try to really limit those, but I'm not 100% vegan. There are some great groups out there if you are vegetarian or vegan. I'm thinking about one, Plant-Based Endurance Athletes, and they have some great ideas in terms of nutrition. When I'm cycling longer distances, anything greater than, say, 20 miles, I'll typically take a GU. Now, some people don't like GUs because they have a lot of artificial chemicals in them. Sometimes people make their own GU. I've seen people take, you can make your own very easily, put them in little reusable containers. A lot of times people on very long events will take boiled potatoes. I have not personally done that, but boiling new potatoes, small potatoes, rolling that in salt to get that potassium, to get that sodium that you need when you're losing that because of sweat, and they'll just pop those in their mouth as they go. If you eat something with sugar, that's going to give you immediate energy. So when I eat the GU, it is high in sugar. So you get that immediate kick, but it's not going to keep you going as long as something more substantial, like a potato, like a banana. If you've done half marathons before, typically on a half marathon course, they will offer bananas cut in half along the way, and then also oranges just to replenish what's lost, again, because of sweating in the course of the race. In my bottle, I typically carry my bike bottle. I typically carry now Propel. I used to drink Gatorade G2, Gatorade Zero, the low calorie versions of that, but I just drink Propel on a regular basis now. And so I just fill my bike bottle with that. And that gives you a little bit of extra energy if you need it as you're riding those longer distances. Races now have adapted their nutrition a little bit because of COVID-19. You're not going to see as many cups that are pre-filled by volunteers along the way. In races, you used to see at the water stops cups that were halfway filled. They would put Gatorade as you went by. Now, more commonly, you're going to see a little individual water bottle. It's a bit more wasteful, but that's what they have to do because of the pandemic and the implications of it. But just take a little bit. A lot of times people will pour a bit on their head. That just gives you a little bit more energy. If you're hot out there, Crystal River, like I was saying before, was this past weekend. Very, very hot course. It's all sun all the way. And so I would take a swig of the water, then pour the rest on my head. That kind of gets you going for the next little bit. Being a vegetarian, you have to be very cognizant of B12. B12 is typically found in meat products, like red meat has a high concentration. So I have to eat things like beans and dark green vegetables to get adequate B12. Still not quite enough. I do have my B12 levels monitored regularly by my endocrinologist. I used to have to do monthly B12 injections to get a sufficient quantity of B12. Now I'm able to do just over-the-counter gummies. Sometimes people take the under-the-tongue pills that dissolve a little bit more quickly. So that is an option as well. If you find that your energy level is low, not just when you're working out, but in general, you might want to have your B12 levels checked, because one of the symptoms of a low B12 level is just a complete lack of energy. Another thing that I do that's very popular these days, intermittent fasting. You might have heard of that before. And intermittent fasting is where you eat during a certain window. Most commonly, you will fast for 16 hours and then eat for 8 hours. There are people that do more extended fasts, but it just kicks your body into a higher metabolic gear. You're going to burn through things more quickly. My eating window, I typically don't eat anything until 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock, so about mid-morning, and then I stop eating by 6 or 7. So that's my daily schedule. The challenge was getting adjusted, because I always work out first thing in the morning, and I might do a 25 minute or 25 mile ride early on. I might do a 10K run first thing. I generally run before 7 a.m. I start my run. Then it took a while to get used to running and working out without eating beforehand. But now that I've gotten used to it, it's very easy. On race weekends, I do eat a little bit beforehand. I just want to make sure that my performance is optimal. So I'll eat a banana beforehand, especially if I'm doing a triathlon. That helps a lot with cramps. Quite commonly, people get cramps in the water. Your muscles just seize up. And if you can eat a banana beforehand, banana afterwards, that does help to offset the cramping.
Okay, what I was going to add to that, I have a lot of supplements because I don't get all the macro micronutrients from the food. The food kind of like hits my little stomach and then, so I have to, and I do the gummies. The gummies are great. My wife buys all these gummies. Magnesium is very important. It's for cellular respiration, which means to burn up the energy that you're going to feed your body with. So you want to burn that energy. You want to burn the sugar and everything that's coming in, and magnesium helps that. The one thing, and I'm not, telling anybody what to do, but what I do is I get my blood, different blood tests for different things, magnesium, iron, all that stuff. And I suggest that people do that are marathon runners, and even, especially if you're running a half or a marathon, you want to make sure that your body, okay, is breaking down your food and you're getting those nutrients into your system. Okay. That steak, with all that B12 in it, isn't going to do anything unless your body breaks it down. The other thing that I didn't go into were enzymes, where you get certain enzymes. Enzymes makes it much easier for your body to break down a solid food into amino acids that they can use. So I really, and you mentioned, Sarah, about getting tested. So I recommend that you go in and get blood work and so forth. If you're a real weekend to weekend runner like Sarah is, you need to really do that so you just don't conk out or you have a severe dizziness or anything, and that causes, an illness. You really ought to get tested if you're an athlete like that. And I think it's very important. And Sarah, as you said, with the B12, you're very cognizant of the fact that that is something that you need, because you don't eat any steak or chicken or none of that stuff. I do. No, but I have a tough time digesting the steak, and so I have to eat the supplements. Salad, okay, I know some of the women out there, salad. If you put avocados in and so forth, but remember the salad dressing can, a little ounce can be like 220 calories, So nutrients in the salad, beans, like you suggested, Sarah, good deal like that. Garbanzo, pinto, all that stuff. Very, very good. I make some weird concoctions because of my gastric bypass. The thing that goes down the best is cookies and M&Ms, but I have to stay away from that. And so beans, and I put mix it with different stuff. If I can't digest the chicken or something like that, I'll put some sauce or something like in it because it goes down better. But that's me. That's what I have to do. People have to really understand your body, what you need, what you ate, and say, I can't eat that anymore. I have to eat something different. You really have to be in tune with your body if you're a runner or cycler. So that's all. I talked enough about that. And the steak, I'll send you the steak, is in the mail, Sarah. But anyway.
And then don't try anything new on race day. So whatever nutrition you're training with, make sure that is what you're using in your race. Some of my Facebook groups, they talk about, what are you going to eat during the marathon? The marathon is tomorrow. What am I supposed to eat along the way? And the response is, don't change anything at this point. You don't want anything that's going to upset your stomach along the way. You know what you can take. Some people get sick after they eat goos, gels, if you're not used to that sugar content. If you haven't had a gel before, the GU brand, they're very salty. And so that's something that you have to kind of get used to. They'd recommend taking it with water at a water stop, but make sure that you're very consistent in your nutrition. I'm training for Ironman Augusta this fall, and nutrition is just really critical. Every hour you need to take something in nutritionally, I would recommend. And then remember to do it. On the bike, I do take a sip of water, a sip of Gatorade, or a sip of Propel every mile or so. Once you get going, you sometimes forget to hydrate. And when you're doing a long distance, it's critical that even if you're not thirsty, you're putting that into your body, you're storing that up, so that when you do get to the run on the Ironman will be mid-afternoon in Georgia heat. And so you have to make sure that you're hydrated and ready for that. Make sure you train in the conditions that you're going to race in. So eat what you need to eat on race day, and then train in the conditions that you're going to race in. If you know that you're going to be running a marathon, maybe it's going to be 4 or 5 hours. If you're doing an Ironman, you're going to be running in the heat of the afternoon. You have to acclimate yourself to that and get used to that heat. Don't be surprised by the conditions on race day. Be prepared instead.
One other thing in closing here, Sarah, you're going to be Saturday at Summers Triathlon.
Yes.
At Claremont, right?
Claremont, yes.
I know that because I'm going to be there with you. I'm going to do a Facebook Live, have you on there, maybe some other people, friends that you have. If you see me there, come on up and you can say hi to Granny or Grandpa or whatever you want to do. So I'm going to be there. Take a look at how they do that race with the triathlon, and hopefully I'll also have it recorded. So if you're running there, stop by. We'll get your picture in there and so forth. But we're going to have pictures of Sarah and so forth. So Sarah never falls off the bike, so you can't fall off while I'm doing a life. But anyway, we're going to close that, and we'll see you the next Tuesday. But look for the Facebook Live with Sarah and some other people friends that Sarah has on Saturday. It starts at 7, right? Is it 7:30?
Bright and early. Yeah, I think we rack our bikes about 6 a.m. or so. So it's an early one.
Right. I'm gonna do the Facebook of different bikes and the transitions and so forth, kind of like a learning curve on that particular type of running, cycling, and swimming and so forth. I'm not going to follow you in the lake, though. You're on your own, Sarah. I'm not going to do that. So anyway, we're going to say sayonara, and we'll see you next time if I can get this to go. And I'm going to end this. I'll see you. See you, Emma.